so here's a good spot. Let's say I'm heading down the road and I'm at 65 and I gotta pass somebody. Here we go. It was up to 80 that quick at 2,500 RPMs. I love it when you guys ask questions about my truck, and one of the questions this week is, what did I do for an intercooler? And that's a good question, because a lot of guys, when they do the swap, they take the radiator and the intercooler out of the Dodge and cut up the core support and fit it in and make brackets. And I didn't really want to do that. I didn't want to spend all that effort, if I didn't have to cut up the core support and make everything fit. So I decided to use the big block radiator and leave my core support as is. And really the only modification I did to the core support was I cut a couple holes in it to run the intercooler lines through. I went on to eBay and I found me an intercooler that would fit inside of this grill, and I measured the distance from here to here and the height, and I didn't have a whole lot of options, but the one that was pretty simple on eBay was a 31 by 12 by 3 and had a 3-inch inlet on both sides. And I don't know if you can see in there or not, but you can see the hose clamp and a 3-inch silicone hose tube. This is an elbow. This is a 90-degree elbow. And then on this side, it's the same thing. It's a 3-inch, but it's a 45-degree elbow that I bought. And it comes out on this side pretty close to the radiator. Now, the big block radiator is not centered in this truck. I don't know if you notice it or not, but there's about a foot distance over here, and then on this side there's maybe 1.5 feet. So it's like it's offset 6 inches, because I think the fan on the 454 big block was off center. Well, it made it real easy for my 90 on this side. You can't see it, but it's down inside of here. It made it super easy for that 90 to come through and then connect pretty much conventionally to the turbocharger on this side using the same Dodge parts. But on this side I had to get pretty creative, and I had to drill my hole at a 45-degree angle through here, and it comes out right behind this light. And then I put another silicone fitting and then use the same tube, same fittings. And then this elbow came from Crazy Carl, and it had to clear my hood because my motor's lifted up pretty high as I could, so that I could have as much clearance underneath as possible for the pumpkin and the oil pan. And so that came out where it had to, basically. You can do a body lift, but I didn't want to do a body lift. So I had to, as I said on previous videos, I had to do a lift with these new springs. Now, one modification I had to do for the radiator was cut my fan shroud. This fan shroud is off of the big block, but as you can see, the fan sticks up a little bit higher than the old fan shroud, so I cut it. And then this is off of a Suburban, a junk Suburban I found, and I just cut this and put it on here just to make sure you don't catch yourself on the fan when the motor's turning. But I was able to trim it pretty tight in here so that I get a lot of airflow through the shroud. And I think this is super important, that you get as much of the fan shroud put back in order to maximize the airflow through the radiator to keep it cool. Now this is a standard part for a Dodge, but the difference I had is this fitting right here on the big block, I think, is 1.25 inches, or an inch and a half. So I had my radiator shop take the radiator, rot it out, and then put a bigger 1.25 inch or 1 3/4 inch outlet to fit the bigger hose. And that's one hose. You can see the number of it right there if you want to search for it. And then I used a standard Dodge lower radiator hose down there, and it fit. I had to trim it a little bit, but it fit fine going right into the big block radiator. And as you can see right here, my air conditioning coil comes out right here. And then, of course, this isn't the air conditioner that came with the Dodge. We bought the high mount, which put the alternator up high and the air conditioner up high. Otherwise, if you use the one out of the Dodge, you end up having to trim your frame. And I didn't think that was such a good idea to trim my frame to get the air conditioner in there. But this system works pretty good. The only thing that I need to try to improve on right now is getting this shaft exactly to line up with all the belt to line up perfectly. And I thought I had it, but I got a little bit of belt squeak for some reason, because I think this pulley needs to be out maybe 1 millimeter or 2. And it squeaks when I first start it up, but then it goes away. All the air conditioner components still works exactly the same. Just bought some different hoses for my heater core. I replaced that not too long ago in there. But that does keep this thing plenty cool. I've pulled my camper, which is 7,000 pounds, running a total of about 15,000 pounds in the summer heat on the interstate, going 70 miles an hour, and doesn't have any trouble at all keeping that engine cool. So I don't know what to tell you on intercoolers. It's a small intercooler, and if any of you have ever watched Gale Banks, you know that cool, dense air is the key to power. But on a swap, you kind of have to make some compromises, and I wanted to keep the whole look of the front the same. All the same lights, the same grille, the same bumper, the same core support, the same hood latch. Now, I will tell you what I did on the hood latch. If you look down in here, you can see this is the intercooler right here, and it's got a little dent in it because the hood latch was too long. And so what I did is I cut it and then welded it back on there, lifting it up a little bit so that I still have my safety latch catching right here. It's just that when it's latched, I can barely get my fingers in there to lift it up. But it does work. But that's the intercooler right there, the aluminum one. So it's pretty tight to the hood latch, but it does work. And I didn't have to trim the grill at all. It's tight, but everything fit. I even put my horn back in there. I don't know if you can see it or not. And it doesn't, somebody asked me if it restricted the flow of air having it in front of the radiator, and it does not. It seems like it runs plenty cool. So the other modification I did was on sound control, and I'm trying to get the truck as quiet as possible. I mean, I love my Cummins, but it is a little bit loud. So I put me a new hood liner in here. This is called Fat Mat, and it's about 3/4 of an inch thick, and it's got a heat shield as well as sound absorption. And then I put some more sound absorption down in the cowl where the air is being pulled in. But the big change that I love is these new tires. I love these things. I took them out. I'll show you on the road. They do great on the highway. They do great on the dirt roads especially. But I'll take you on a drive and let you see how they do. Now, why did I pick this size tire? Well, I picked the biggest tire I could put on here and still turn. So it was a nice discount tire, helped me out a lot. They ordered in these wheels and these tires without even the obligation of buying them. And we put them on just to see if it was going to clear right here. And then of course clear right here. And it does perfectly. I have about a 1/2 inch of clearance. So I got out here on the interstate just so I could check my odometer and see what my speed is. And so I'm checking the mile markers here. Here we are at 274. Boom! I am exactly 10% off. 1/10 off so far on all of these that I've been checking. So that means if I'm 10% off, I suppose that means I'm 10% off on my speedometer as well as odometer. So I'll have to take that into consideration so I don't get a speeding ticket. But here I am cruising about the speed that everybody else is going. Probably somewhere around 75. I'm going 70 according to my odometer or speedometer, and I'm turning about 2150 maybe. Not quite 2200 RPMs. She's pretty smooth. Have to get my decimal meter out. So here we are cruising on the highway. Like 76, 77. Well, I think the tires are a big win. I appreciate everybody joining me. And look for another video coming up here in a couple weeks. Have a good one. Thanks.